England in 878 was not the powerful kingdom you imagine. It was a land of wooden halls, muddy tracks, and constant fear. The great heathen army had swept through Britain in a decade. The north was gone, the east was gone, the Midlands had crumbled. Only one kingdom still held, Wessex in the south. Barely. Winchester was Alfred's capital, a working town of timber houses packed inside crumbling Roman walls. Perhaps 3,000 people, muddy streets, a modest cathedral. Most people never saw Winchester. They lived in villages of 10 or 15 households, 50 people at most, surrounded by open fields and dark forest. The houses were built of oak posts and woven hazel rods plastered with clay, straw, and animal dung. Low, dark, and rough. One room, one fire, no chimney. The smoke rose through the thatch above. The rafters were black with soot. The air stung the eyes. The day began before sunrise. The first person awake knelt by the hearth and coaxed the embers back to life. Letting the fire die overnight was a disaster. Then came water. The nearest source might be a well, a spring, or the edge of a stream. Heavy wooden buckets, frozen paths, painfully cold water. Breakfast was barley porridge, dark bread from the day before, and weak, cloudy ale. There was no tea, no sugar, no coffee. Everyone drank ale, including the children. After breakfast, the work began, and it did not stop until the light failed. For the men, the land, plowing, sowing, weeding, harvesting. Every single season. For the women, the quern, 2 flat stones, one turning on the other, grinding grain into coarse flour by hand. Every day. The grit wore into the flour, and over years wore down their teeth. Bread was baked most days. Dark, dense, heavy, made from barley, rye, or oats. Rarely from wheat. Wheat was expensive. Bread was not a luxury. It was survival. The main meal was pottage, a thick stew of onions, leeks, beans, and root vegetables. In a good season, a piece of salted pork. In a bad season, the portions were small. The clothing was wool, almost always wool. Natural colors, cream, brown, dark gray. The colors of the sheep that had grown it. Brightly dyed cloth was for the wealthy. Women spun raw wool into thread using a drop spindle and wove it on upright looms against the wall. The clicking of loom weights was one of the constant sounds of daily life. The church was the center of everything. Births, marriages, deaths, holy days, and disputes. All of them passed through this one building. No pews. People stood or knelt on the earth floor. The service was in Latin, which almost no one understood. But the rituals were familiar, and the meaning was felt. In the monasteries, monks copied manuscripts by candlelight in cold stone rooms. They were keeping the intellectual life of England alive, barely. Alfred held court in a wooden hall. He heard cases. He planned defense. He translated Latin texts into Old English with his own hands. No other king in the 9th century did that. The animals were central to survival. Pigs foraged in the woodland for acorns. Cattle provided milk and leather. Sheep provided wool. A farmer would not slaughter a healthy cow unless he had to. The Roman roads were still there, crumbling, overgrown, but still the best routes across the landscape. Everything else was a path worn by feet through mud. Rivers were the real highways. A journey that took days on foot could be done in hours by water. Grain, wool, salt, and iron moved up and down the waterways. In villages near the Danelaw border, the fear was immediate. A watchman at dawn, eyes on the horizon, scanning the north for movement. Every morning, 2 long ships on the river, silent, moving through the mist. That was the most feared sight in 9th century England. By the time you saw them, it was almost too late. The response was flight. Most villages had no walls, no garrison, no defense. You grabbed your children and you ran into the woods, into the marshes, and you hoped. A spear, a round wooden shield, a sea-axe knife hung by the door. Not a soldier's weapons, a farmer's weapons, sharpened when the rumors grew louder, hoped never to be needed. Alfred's answer was the burhs, fortified towns built across Wessex. The idea was simple. No one should be more than a day's march from a defended settlement. 1 ring meant prayer. 3 rings, fast and urgent, meant danger. The sound of that bell at the wrong hour was the most feared sound in the village. The woman by the fire did not know she lived in the year a nation was being born. She only knew the bread, the fire, the children, and the stubborn refusal to let her world disappear.